Hello and welcome to Working Software. Previously, we in an earlier video deployed the data res Spring Boot application into Kubernetes and load balanced that with Nginx. Today we are looking at a service mesh, and we will see what that gives us and how we can use that for load balancing and other concerns. So what we will be doing today is using the open source Istio Service Mesh to help us with load balancing, observability, and traffic shifting. We won't be looking at session affinity here, but this article that's on Medium goes through that, how you can do that. And it'll be running on a Mac OS using Docker Desktop rather than a WSL Ubuntu. Otherwise, very similar. So what is a service mesh? In the Istio website here, as you can see, it goes into details, but the thing to understand is there are many common infrastructure concerns such as security, observability, traffic management, and many others that it takes care of, so that you don't have to code it in individual microservices code. You just centralize that and you basically use the service mesh to do that for you. It goes into detail here what Istio gives you, but one of the key things is to see that there is a sidecar, the Envoy proxy, that communicates with the control plane, the Istio control plane, and that's how things are done. So this is a code here. It is very simple. One thing to note that it's Java 17, so you have to replace Java x.servlet with Jakarta.servlet. Although it will compile using JavaX, when you run it, it'll cause issues and it won't be able to inject correctly. We're also adding to the header some timestamp and text. Vadal, by the way, in Hindi means, or Vadal means cloud. And we basically return it as a string on that context, /root context. So let's run it here and see how it behaves. I was running it earlier, so let's stop and start it again. There we go. And let's curl it. And there you go. That's the result coming back from, so it's working fine. And it's giving us the timestamp and the text that we're expecting. So let's run up Docker desktop on the Mac, and that's running up because we want to build the Docker image using the buildpack maven command. But for that you need Docker up and running, and we're fixing the version to 1 in this build. We'll have 2 versions just to demonstrate how we can shift traffic from one version to another between 2 deployments. And there it is, up and running, and the Docker is running, and Kubernetes is coming up. So with Docker up and running, let's build the image. I have a tool called BLD that is a bit like make, and it's running the Maven Spring Boot build image command. And while it's doing that, let's look at the deploy YAML file. Here we have 2 deployments, one for version 1 and one for version 2. And it's important to label the versions for Istio to see it. And there you have version 2 here, and this is version 1 of deployment. Plus we have a service layer on top of it. This is the service layer exposing port 8888, and this will be accessed by the virtual server, virtual service, this here, and it's the Istio's implementation of it. This will talk to the service at port 8888 and also connect with the gateway here. Now this is different from what we did previously, which is use the ingress kind. This is a gateway kind, which is giving a bit more flexibility, a bit more control, and a bit more, it's more general way of talking, of accessing the back end and exposing it to the world. Also, we're using the host name host.docker.internal. You can use localhost. The other thing is here we've got this wizard, Kiali wizard, to allow traffic shifting from the wizard, which we'll show you later. So that's the host, as you said, can be localhost, but that's available as a host, and it's connected via the gateway name. At the moment we have a weight of 90-10, so could change that to 50-50, so it will move traffic to both versions of the software, of both deployments. There's something called a destination rule that's needed. Now this resource value version is important. You cannot deploy it unless it matches what's already been deployed. So if you redeploy it, you have to change the version number. That's something a bit strange. So here we are. Let's first run it, run the Docker image, so we get an idea that the Docker image is working okay, and that's the Docker image returning. So the Docker image, the build is all cool. So first we need to install a Istio client tooling, and this is how we do it. If you look here, the documentation, where it says try Istio, and that's the command that you just saw. The other thing we have to remember to do is set the path, and you probably put that in your bash RC or profile scripts. And the other thing to remember to do is to set the namespace label like so, to allow the sidecars to be implemented when you deploy the containers. Okay, so let's install it. Set the path. And then install it. Yes. And there we are. Just to check, we have this K9S2, which I installed with brew. And if you change the namespace, you can see, there we are, Istio control system. Now the other thing we need to do as well is add dashboards. So if you look at the samples directory, the add-ons, there's also other code that you can install and run, sample code, but for the add-ons, this is the dashboards they can see. So let's go ahead and install that, because we'll be using mainly Kiali dashboard. And there they are. So let's deploy the deploy YAML file. I have this make like command called BLD, which basically runs kubectl apply. And there it is. Echo 1 is up and running. Green. Echo 2 is not yet running because we haven't yet built the version 2 Docker image. So let's go ahead and set that up. So what we need to do is to change this version to 2 and then build that image, and it should find it once the image is built. So let's go ahead and build the image. So this would typically be something enhancement to a your existing software by code, and you'd be building a new image to deploy, and you'd of course adjust the deployment to have another version. And it should come up. So while it's doing that, we can look at the first container, and we can add a port forwarder to it, like so, and test it out to see if we can talk to it. This is just checking whether the image is working inside Kubernetes by forwarding, and we can delete the container. That should delete the forwarding as well. Restart the container, which is what it's doing. And the other one is now up as well. Once we build the image, it helps for you to helps when you have the image for you to find. And we have the Istio gateway and the virtual service pointing to the gateway and connecting to the service. And if we curl it, does it work? It works. So let's change the code slightly. So we log the details, the header details, when the request is made. That'll help us see the logs that the request has been called through the logs. And then let's build it. So once it's built, let's delete the deployments, and I'm just using K9s to help me do that. And once it's deleted, we redeploy, and that should install the new images, updated images. So let's do that, build, deploy, and that runs the deployment XML, and that's the new versions hopefully installed. And we can check it, it's running, and curl it. Should show us the request being called. So let's put some load through it and see how it behaves. And you can see the logs coming out there. Let's run up another K9 terminal and put some load through it, and it should run robin between the two versions, the two deployments. So let's have a look at that as we put some load through it. Okay, I've cleared the screens. Then let's run that again. Okay, one by one. So yeah, it's doing the load balancing as you'd expect. Let's run a whole lot of requests. And there you go, it's going through both versions, 50-50, 50% you'd expect. So let's run the dashboard, the Kiali dashboard, with that command, ist control dashboard Kiali. And that's the browser that runs up. So one thing we notice when we look at the services, that it's saying missing sidecar. That's because I forgot to do something that I said we should do, which is to add the label. And that will do right now. So this is the command we need, and we'll paste it here, and that should fix it. But we now need to redeploy restart our containers, and by doing that it will add the sidecars. So let's do that. We need to look at the pods, and at the moment there's no sidecars, so let's let's redo them. Yeah, that's what we needed, which we were missing, this label. So we'll kill that and it'll restart, and we need to do the same with the other one. And once it's restarted, you should see the Istio proxy. There you go, that's the proxy. And now we will be able to look at the dashboards and other things. So let's run up the dashboard, Kiali dashboard again. And when we look at the services, it should now not say it's missing. It's good, and it's got the virtual service gateway and so on connected, and pointing to port 888 and the outside port being 80. Okay, let's first put some load through it, and then we will look at the dashboard after it's gone through. And now when we look at the graph, we can see the graph showing the ingress gateway to the Spring app, to the Vettel Echo deployment, to the Vettel Echo service, and the two deployments, 1 and 2. And we can animate the traffic, and look at the traffic rate as well, distribution. So one thing we can do is look at the service and click on the service here, and when we click that, it'll give us this view, and we have some actions we can do, which we've turned on with the wizard, and that's the traffic shifting wizard. So you can shift the traffic between one deployment to another. However, this doesn't work for us because it doesn't seem to work with the port we've defined, which is 8888. But there's another way of doing it, and that is by going into the config itself. So yeah, because of this port here, I think that's the reason. So we can actually go into the configuration of the destination rule and pick up this resource version, which we need to update our deployment file. So in the deployment file, we make sure the resource version is matching, so that becomes the same as what was deployed, and it'll update it as we are deployed, and then we can change this. So typically you'll have version 1 will have 99, say, until you're satisfied that new version works, and version 2 is 1, and once you're happy, you can shift it the other way around. That's one way of doing it. Okay, so let's we've deployed it, and we've seen that it's been configured here, the service and the destination rule. So now, when we put some load in, some traffic through, we should see the distribution. So let's do that first. Here we generate some load, and let's turn off the output. Let's send it to device now, and then run it, and you should see, when we go back to this Kiali dashboard, refresh that, and it should catch up in a minute, and you see version 1 and version 2. Version 1 taking 99% of the traffic, and version 2 taking 1% of traffic, roughly. So that's what we've done here. So to shift the traffic back, we need to grab this resource version, and because it's changed after we deploy it, and update our deployment file with that number over here, and then we can change our weighting. So we want to send 80% to the new version 2, and we've updated the source version, and we deploy it like so. And let's look at the graph, and let's send some load down it to those services, and we should see it swap around. There we go. There you go. 83 and 16, roughly 80-20, and most of the traffic going to the new version now. So this is what one of the things you can use a service mesh for. The other thing is you can look at the traffic and the logs. So this is the logs from the dashboard itself, and some metrics like so. The request count, and if you had multiple services talking to each other, you could see traces. This is the envoy sidecar and the metrics within that, and yeah, lots of details about envoy over here. And so these are the details you can see for that particular deployment service. So the other dashboard that we can run up is Grafana. So let's do that. Let's run it up like so. And we can look at the Istio metrics. And here we have the service workload. You can see quite a lot of things around the service. So if you used Grafana before, there's lots of things you can tailor here and create charts to your heart's content. This is the performance, CPU, memory usage, and so forth. Go routines, the parallelization performance, and so on. And the other thing we can try running up is Jaeger, which shows you the traces. And this looks like this. Select our service and look at it the last 5 minutes that we've been doing, and you can see the gateway calling our service and the details within that service. If you click down, and the tags and the processes and so forth, it tells you. Yes, and so you can see how services interact with each other in terms of timing and so on. Have a look at the Istio site. There's a lot more sample code and things you can try out. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.